Today, we're talking the latest on number one overall QB, Dylan Raiola. Last show, I put us all on Dylan Raiola commit watch. We connected some dots. It all made sense. I got an update on that later. But first, we got some other QB Dominos news to cover. There were two major developments impacting quarterbacks across the country, and they all happened yesterday. First, Oregon bringing in number 12 overall QB Michael Van Buren. Van Buren made that announcement on Twitter that he will be at Oregon's spring game next Saturday. That's big news. It also, on Sunday, now, I don't know if this news correlates. I'm going to ask Sam Spiegelman about that. But the number 31 ranked quarterback overall, Luke Moga, decided that he is not going to announce his decision later this week. Now, Oregon was one of the teams that was in it heavy for Luke Moga. Now Moga says, hold on, I'm not ready to decide on the 28th of April. I'm going to make my decision later. Moga has been shooting up recruiting charts recently. He got offers from Miami, TCU, Arizona State, Oregon. He's currently holding over 20 offers, but not ready to decide. Let's bring on national recruiting analyst Sam Spiegelman. Sam, do you think that the announcement from Michael Van Buren about attending the Oregon spring game coincides or correlates with Luke Moga's decision to maybe push off his decision till later?
Yeah, I think absolutely. We're getting a closer look at what the Oregon quarterback board looks like for this particular cycle. You have to remember that Dan Lanning hired Will Stein to take over for Kenny Dillingham, who's now the head coach at Arizona State. So there's some new eyes running the offense over there in Eugene. And let's talk about Michael Van Buren. He is a top target in state for Mike Locksley and the Maryland Terrapins. And it felt like Penn State and James Franklin were in a head-to-head battle to keep one of the best in the DMV area close to home. But Michael Van Buren deciding to head to the Oregon spring game this weekend. Obviously, we're starting to see that Dan Lanning and Will Stein are recruiting this one of the best uncommitted quarterbacks in the country as hard as they can going into this weekend. We know that he's not going to make a decision until this summer, we expect. And Luke Moga pushing his timeline back. He has been an early find for Dan Lanning and the Ducks. A couple of schools have gotten involved, but him pushing it back, I think it's naturally tied in with Michael Van Buren coming into town. I'm told that Oregon likes both of these quarterbacks, so both are still, two quarterbacks to watch if you're a Ducks fan. But it seems like Van Buren has shot to the top of their board.
Yeah, and Penn State and Oregon right now, if you go check out the recruiting prediction machine on Van Buren, they are battling it out. I put in a pick for Van Buren to Oregon. You put in a pick on Sunday for Van Buren to Oregon. Now, we both know it's not a done deal yet. We need to see him follow through on that visit that we expect him to take on Saturday. But it kind of seems like it's trending heavily in Oregon's direction. Now, Van Buren does land at Oregon. It shakes things up for Penn State and Maryland. It also shake things up for Luke Moga as well, who I agree with you. I do think this was tied together. I do think that Oregon is kind of prioritizing Van Buren. They want to get him on campus on Saturday. They don't want Luke Moga to take that spot just yet. We'll see how it all shakes out. But what do you think is going to happen now with Maryland and Penn State?
Yeah, well, there's only so many of these blue chip uncommitted quarterbacks left in this 2024 cycle. So barring some craziness, which is certainly possible, as you know, Josh, let me give you a few names. Samaj James is one of the top 20 quarterbacks in the country, a Philly kid. It makes a lot of sense for James Franklin, who might want to look in state in his own backyard, already has a relationship with James. Another one is Jaden Bradford, obviously, the four-star from IMG Academy down there in Bradenton, Florida. He's from South Carolina originally, could be a name to watch. And like you said, Luke Moga. Other schools have gotten into the mix, schools like Miami, which has a quarterback committed, but TCU, which was in the mix with Michael Hawkins. You still need to find their guy for their new offensive coordinator. So there's still a lot of twists and turns to be seen in this cycle.
There are, and it affects the teams, it affects the players. The QB dominoes affect everybody across the board. So when we're talking about QB dominoes, obviously the number one QB is Dylan Raiola. We're going to talk about him here in a minute. You also have uncommitted at number 7, Elijah Brown, and then also uncommitted at 17, Isaac Wilson. So let's talk about Elijah Brown for a minute. He's out of California.
Yeah, he's the big blue chipper from modern day, so naturally we can tie him in with a couple of these Pac-12 teams. USC is definitely a team to watch along with UCLA, then Stanford, and he's also been to Arizona State, which are the four probably to keep your eye on with Brown.
Yeah, I think Arizona State would love to land Brown, but currently put in a pick for him to land at Stanford. Talking to sources, I think this is going to be more of an academic decision for the number 7 overall quarterback. Hey, you got Stanford offering you a scholarship to go play quarterback there. That's hard to turn down. So I put in a pick for Stanford. They're currently trending at almost 95%. Now let's take a look at Isaac Wilson. He's sitting there at 17. Utah, BYU, Arizona State also in play there. What do you think of Isaac Wilson?
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun and interesting battle to watch because you have the offensive driven Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State, and he's trying to pluck the BYU legacy. I mean, we know who Isaac Wilson is. We know who his older brother is, Zach Wilson. He first round pick from BYU. So obviously it's a family connection, but he's already been to Arizona State. I expect him to take an official visit out there as well. I think this is a little bit more open than we expect.
All right. Now it's time to talk about Dylan Raiola. But before I talk about the number 1 quarterback in America, I need you guys to hit the like button and subscribe to the On3 YouTube page. We have all the latest recruiting developments, and we are all over Dylan Raiola Commit Watch. All right. Now, about that commit watch, I'm going to address that in a minute. Dylan Raiola, as we know, 5-star quarterback, number 1 overall, and he has been trending to the Georgia Bulldogs. If you take a look at the recruiting prediction machine over the course of the last really month, picks have been going in. Jeremy Johnson, the most recent for On3, but also some experts over at 24/7 last week were dropping their crystal balls for Raiola to Georgia. And if you remember last Thursday's show, I said we were on Dylan Raiola Commit Watch. Well, Sam talked to some sources over the weekend, and at least for now, we are off Raiola Commit Watch. And when I say we're off, I mean like maybe for the next 5 days, okay? Next week, we could be back on for all I know. But at least this week, I'm not expecting Dylan Raiola to commit to Georgia. Now, that could be good news if you're Nebraska, who is on the verge of heartbreak, or if you're USC and you're still looking for your quarterback. Sam, where do you stand right now with your pick for Dylan Raiola? Have you put one in yet?
No, I haven't. But listen, all the buzz since his last visit to Athens has been in favor of the 2-time national champs. Kirby Smart has zeroed in on him. That, from what I understand, he has been their top quarterback on the board for the last 2 recruiting cycles. Then again, we know the importance of what Dylan Raiola means to Nebraska and Matt Rule. They're going into his first year in Lincoln. He has a legacy there. He's hoping to be a big win for that program, and they have not offered another quarterback just yet. And then, of course, USC and Lincoln Riley, the quarterback guru. And for a Phoenix quarterback, Phoenix area kid, USC has the home field advantage in this one. And I'm not ready to call it in on Lincoln Riley just yet. But it still seems to favor the Bulldogs as an announcement potentially looms.
Yeah, it felt last week like a commitment might be imminent and it was going to be over. Georgia was going to wrap it all up before even summer starts, but not so fast. Matt Rule, Lincoln Riley, probably going to get another crack at him. We'll see what happens. We'll see if this can trend in a different direction. But for now, I agree with where the RPM stands. I do think Georgia is the favorite. So, Sam, thanks for checking in on the Inside Scoop, talking a little QB Dominos, and boy, are they still falling. Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me, and remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.